啊，把我的跳起来跳起来。
With click and collect from over 550 stores, you can conquer any job with Toolstation.
Anything you could do, I could do better. I could do anything better than you. Oh, that's what you think? Anything you could do, I could do better. No. I could do anything better than you. No, anything you could be, I could be great. I could be greater than you. Yes, I can.
Why do we clap when we're impressed? Life is confusing. Insurance doesn't have to be. Don't be confused. BeConfused.com.
Welcome back to Zandvoort, where for the second time in 2023, Lewis Hamilton has been knocked out in the second part of qualifying. Miami and then
get the brakes up to temperature. When you're going out on track, you get the car up to temperature, you get the brakes up to temperature. They can even try and do, like almost a pit stop and put the slicks on in the pit lane. But here we go, George Russell. So 19.3 time, so 18.8 was the time in Q2 on the intermediate tyres, and we'll see now the first run on slicks.
Bernie Collins, down to you.
Yeah, Piastri already on the radio asking for the slick tyres, coming in after just that first cider lap on the Inter. Perez as well talking about it. So it is Inter that Verstappen's gone out on that.
Yeah, which is surprising, given that teams monitor other teams' radios, and they will have heard Oscar Piastri's comments. But as you're saying, it may be good time to get some temperature into the brakes, come and make a very rapid pit stop, get back out on the slicks and enjoy just a bit more heat coming through, giving you more grip as you start another flying lap.
And Verstappen won't be burning up an extra set of Inters. He'll use the same set that he finished Q2 on, so he'll still have his fresh intermediate set for the race tomorrow should he need it. And as I said, they're doing a sort of semi-hot pit stop out in the pit lane. They're not wasting time going back into the garage or refueling. They just get it down the pit lane, get them back on track. And this is about driver knowledge. This is about getting the drivers comfortable with the car moving around on the damp parts of the track, around turns 9 and 10, where it's still a little bit damp, while building confidence in these fast corners.
Stewards are going to look at that Tsunoda Hamilton potential impeding after the session. It's another stewards investigation. He has 3 now.
Ready, right? Stand by. Max. Focus on the job at hand.
Max is interested in strategy and tyre choice, and GP, as race engineer, wants him to concentrate on the driving. It's imperative now, Karun. If the track is drying, that's one thing, but the white lines won't be drying, the curbs won't be drying. You've got to stay off the painted bits.
And the best times are going to come in the last minute anyway, so it doesn't matter if he misses a lap here. He might as well just sit tight and let it unfold. You see George Russell around the banking now, nice, clean, dry line. You know what, Crofty? It is a amazing feeling when you go from wets or intermediates onto slicks. You just can't believe suddenly that first lap how much grip you've got in the cockpit.
It is an amazing feeling. Coming Alex Albon's way, he's just crossed the line with a 1:15.7, goes faster than George Russell by about 2.5 seconds. That'd be a pretty good feeling for him. And Logan Sargent, about a second behind his teammate, but ahead of George Russell too. Logan Sargent, the first American driver to get into the top 10 in qualifying since Michael Andretti at the Italian Grand Prix in 1993.
Which was Michael Andretti's last race.
And
And
I mentioned
Sargent has
Logan
gone off.
Sargent, he's gone off the track. And that's going to be a red flag. He's gone off the track at turn 2, just out of turn 2, before the bank corner of turn 3. We have got a red flag. And as Logan Sargent gets into Q3 for the first time ever, his adventure lasts for one flying lap, and he is now out. I'm glad to say he's radioed the team to say that he's okay. And that's the first priority as he now clambers out of the car, but he's gone in there, Karun, at a fair speed.
Yeah, I wonder if he got slightly off the dry line. There's such a narrow band around turn 2. That overhead shot from the crane showed us just how narrow the dry part of the track was. And I'm sure we'll get a replay in a minute and we can have a look and see if he just touched a bit of water there.
About 110 miles an hour you're taking turn 2. The Aston Martin, the DBX medical car on the scene to give Logan a lift back to the pits to make sure that he's okay. Who didn't come out of the pits to do a lap? Verstappen came out on the intermediates lap. I think they've all managed to come out here. Some got a lap in on the soft compound tyre. All the while we get this delay, that will just help the track dry, and probably make these initial times a little bit irrelevant.
Look at that curb on the left-hand side. Look how narrow the band is. Let's see there as he turns. Yeah, look. Almost want to see that in slow motion here. I nearly touched the screen thinking it was the Skypad to slow down.
You okay? Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I think, there's such a narrow band, that curb on the left, and then you got to turn into the right-hander. I think the width that the drivers have got to play with, and this just highlights, right, the precision that the drivers are having to use to get to the perfect line around this track. where the tyre tracks have created this narrow band of dry track.
How difficult is it as a driver when you're on a drying track and you're going from a line that you'd use in the wet now on slick tyres to one that you can't use in the dry? You know, muscle memory often takes over. How difficult is it to correct that and go to something a little more to the right in this case?
Yeah, you really got to have your wits about you, you know, and it's just about a car's width, isn't it? Look at that bit next to the curb in the middle of our screen, the sort of bottom right of your screen. It's less than a car's width, right? And you really got to be, I think, initially as well, the first couple of laps, in this situation, you know when the track's wrapping up, the key thing I always said to myself is make sure you're there at the end. Yeah. You know, just build up, build up. It doesn't matter whatever lap time you do in the first part, it's going to be slower than what you can do later on. So just make sure you get comfortable and find the right groove for the last few minutes.
Let's go to Sky Race Control, Bernie Collins, as we look at that dry line around the track.
Yeah, so just thinking about what's going to happen now going forward. We've got 8 minutes left on the clock. So I think for me, there's a bit limited in what they can do in terms of strategy. They can do 2 runs on 2 new soft tyres, and there's maybe a minute extra margin, so they could come into the garage and do a turnaround, but they're likely fueled for the session. So you could see something like out warm-up push on that first run, and then a pit stop, and then 1 flying lap on the last run, and that would get them to the flag nicely, because again, it's going to be the final lap of this session that's the quickest with the improvement.
It's a short lap around here. You know, we've seen 1:15 so far, where we expected the end to be down sort of 1:11s, I think. And or at least in full dry conditions would have been 1:10s maybe. I think that also the fact that the track is drying and will continue to dry till the end of the session and improve, it's not such a bad thing if you have to fuel for the whole session, because really the lap times earlier on, if you're carrying an extra 15 kilos of fuel, it doesn't matter. You just got to have the right tyre and be in the right position for the last lap, unlike what Mercedes had with Hamilton. They mistimed that and had him out a lap too early.
Yeah, 100%. The only thing that's slightly different with the pit stop and the pit lane is you can't control your track position as accurately as you can just releasing a car from the garage. That's the only slight negative from a strategist side, but in this session, with the forecast, with the radar as we see it so often here, it's about getting every lap on the board that you can.
So they'll just give the Tech Pro barriers a look to make sure that they're still all in place and able to do their job properly. The line of barrier be in front of the tyre barriers. That's where the marshals are. Williams with 2 cars in Q3 for the first time since Monza in 2017. Stroll and Massa that day have 1 car out, and that's why we got a red flag.
He was to the left, I think. I think he just caught the damp part with his left-hand tyres slightly wide off the line that other people must have been using, and that caught him off.
Sport his day, rather. Sadly, Logan Sargent having to exit with a leap rather than leaping up the grid order. Anthony Davidson's down at the Sky pad. Anthony.
I've even taken my jacket off for you this time, Crofty. So I listen, I learn, and I respond. And to Karun, who his wish is my command. In a slow-mo, we can see Sargent just turning in, and right about there, you can see that damp line. I'm in the shade here, so it's a little bit hard for me to see, but you can see that damp line. He's just a little bit off to the left-hand side as he turns in, and I think that's all it took to lose control with the rear end of the car. And yeah, really narrow line of dry track there for them all. But he obviously survived 1 lap through there, pushed a little bit harder the next lap, a little bit late in his turn in. I mean, you're talking centimetres. That's all it took to send that car into the barrier there. Back to you.
Thanks ever so much indeed, Ant. Pole last year was 1:10.3, by the way, from Max Verstappen, a 1:15.7. Is the fastest time so far, so it still shows you just how much slower the track is and how much damper the track is. Yes, I know last year's cars might have been a bit faster as well, but still quite a margin on such a short lap time.
Yeah, I think we have got to the point of the season now where, despite the floor changes to the regulations, the cars now are going quicker. Budapest, I think, was 7/10 quicker than last year, wasn't it? Pole position time. So teams have all, as per normal, made up for any regulation changes and a bit more.
Then news yet as to when we get a resumption. The clock stops with 8 minutes and 13 seconds left on it. Barriers continue to be checked, and when race control are happy, we'll get an indication from them as to when the session can start again. No time set by Sergio Perez, Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso or Oscar Piastri. Some were on the track, some weren't on the track, but given that the sun is now warming up the track, those times you have be thinking back to Silverstone for Oscar Piastri, might get a run free in Q3 that day when we had a delay. Apparently that his dominance on a drying track rather faded away a little bit because the track was bone dry by the time we went for the final runs.
Yeah.
It's not that I desperately want Oscar Piastri to be on pole, but I just think in these sort of conditions he shows some real ability.
Well, I think McLaren in general have shown great pace, and they brought a new rear wing kill, which should be a bit more efficient as well. So in terms of just giving them a bit more straight line speed, despite the fact that this is a very high downforce track, third highest on the calendar after Budapest and Monaco.
Right, almost on his red flag. That's it. Lewis Hamilton out in Q2 for the second time this season.
There's just such a tiny gap between you being into Q3 today. What happened in that final quite a quick time, I should say, for you? Was it just timing on it to get back up to it?
I did 2 fast laps at the end of the last so
So what's your car you got for the race tomorrow?
the second car is really good, so hopefully with the cars will be ready and we'll be able to progress for it's not an easy track to move forward, but tomorrow's going to be dangerous.
Sergio Perez is sparring the final corner of his final lap of Q3 here last year. Starting in pit lane after taking a new power unit from the pit lane to 8th. Made good progression in the field. Lewis Hamilton is going to have to do something very similar in the pit lane, but that sort of progression tomorrow to salvage his weekend. I'm sure would have been looking at a much higher grid spot had he made it through into Q3. Not to be on this particular occasion. Left to Williams, which is into the barriers. That's why we've got the red flag. Left to Ferraris, Sainz and Leclerc. Mercedes and George Russell, the 2 McLaren, Piastri and Norris, and the 2 Red Bulls of Verstappen and Perez. And Alonso, who has gone, counted it all up just for you, crew, 4,052 days since his last pole position in Germany, 2012.
I was just looking at that graphic that came up, Piastri versus Verstappen. But I was looking at it, you do a deeper dive. The average gap between them is only just over 2/10 across season. Bearing in mind, Lando is probably one of the best qualifiers in F1 over the last 3 years, possibly as a rookie. And actually, if you take away Bahrain, the first race of the year, when Oscar's absolute first ever qualifying, and he had a few issues and the car was great. If you take that one race away, it comes to just over 10.5, which is a very impressive effort, despite the score being 10-2. I actually think Oscar's done a cracking job in his rookie season in general.
So one race earlier in the season where he set an identical time to the driver who got out of Q1, and because he set it second as well, he didn't go through. And so many qualifying decisions in his case might even have been Bahrain. The first race. I'm looking at Bernie College, normally writes these sort of things down.
Yeah, I've not written that one down, but what I was going to say is, from the strategy side, we often don't do the head-to-head for a number count for that reason. We look at how much the theoretical best is, what the delta is, and we track it more in this sort of pure numbers way, because you could have a 50-50, but if the drivers have the time 5-6 times off, that's not as good as someone who maybe uses every single qualifying, but only by very small margins, and that's more what we tend to look at from the strategy side.
Very channel is now brandishing a piece of paper.
Exactly that, because I think also there's so many things that don't tell the story. where there's a higher risk of impact. There's 5 rows of tyres between the tech pro and the concrete, and then it sort of tapers down because the track gets, that part of the runoff gets narrower. So there's a lot of science involved in calculating just how much absorption material you need. Ensuring Lando is not asleep, he is deep in concentration.
He'd laugh if we asked him if he was asleep. I mean, why would he not be meditating,
Glaring his
chilling?
nostrils totally oblivion.
He's having a dream where, you know, he's I think going to the final corner. It's very exciting. Thousands of a second.
Oh, he missed the chair. I've just woken up at that point.
He does his thing. He's studying data on the screens.
He never sleeps. He's just always on it for that. So, like a samurai ninja.
To this day, I was talking yesterday about the car, the RB19 this year, and saying that it's very, very simple as a car. Our weaknesses are stronger than our competitors' weaknesses, but also the discount performance factors now as a driver.
Helmet. It was Oscar Piastri
Really?
doing a little bit of karting in the summer break, and apparently he flew past Paul Monahan, who tried to keep up with him, and then gave up after about 1 minutes.
I think those barrier repairs might just have been fixed. We have got 3.5 minutes until Q3 will resume, which is great for 2 reasons. A, we can get going once again. B, times it differently, and also his first ever qualifying session in 2020.
How was that? I mean, you had a really hectic day today. How are you feeling at the end of that one?
I feel okay. Yeah, it's been very, very hectic. It's been very tricky conditions, to be honest. The insert is a time hectic before, so I was quite surprised by how high the grip is, but how easy it is to overslip and then have issues basically. So. But I felt alright the first part of the session, felt quite good on the first set. I felt like I was getting somewhere, and then it rained again, and I think I just didn't quite push up on that second set, so yeah.
This is a tough track to come to for the first F1, and also, I mean, physically as well, it's very demanding on you. How are you feeling? What are you expecting for tomorrow's race?
Tomorrow's going to be a long race, for sure. I feel okay right now. Obviously the conditions are not as difficult as dry physically, so I expect it to be a lot more tough tomorrow. But yeah, this track is definitely a tricky one to come to. It's quite bumpy in places. It's a track that takes a lot of confidence in most weekends. But something that's quite difficult for me to grab so quickly.
The team said to you that they expect from tomorrow, just get used to the car, get used to the whole situation of a Formula 1 weekend, because every chance we'll need you in Monza, according to what Christian told us.
Pretty much exactly that, yeah. Don't look at times too much, and basically just get familiar with it, learn as much as I can. Obviously tomorrow it's dry, probably again first time driving in the dry, so basically we're learning weekends, and hopefully I can take a lot from it.
Great stuff, thank you.
Thank you.
3 wins in the Japanese Super Formula Series this season. He's second in the championship. Has driven an F1 car. He drove around Tauri and Spa in Mexico in 2020. He says, I've driven this time before. He hasn't before this season. It's all been a big learning experience for the endorsement. This time, yesterday, wouldn't have been thinking when he was going into qualifying. He's hit a place down in Ricardo. Something broken hand up. Accident yesterday. but we're adopting Liam because he drove the Red Bull around. I'm sure there is. Bernie Collins, who's got what tyres for this final part of qualifying?
Yeah, well, we've already got a queue at the end of the pit lane, and it's all looking like new soft tyres. Obviously, with having the intersections earlier, they've got plenty of soft tyres available, and they're all queuing up there. But the interesting bit at this point is the pit lane's a lot wetter than on track, so that bit of pit lane will be cooling the tyres down more than on the track. So you might be a reasonably fast out lap here.
And the pressure's on going down on the tyres by the Saturday. So there's some drops of water on the tyres of Carlos Sainz, who's the first driver to come out of the pit lane.
Kind of want the pressure to come down a bit anyway. The track temperature is rising quickly with the sun coming out, and this is a track on tyres. Get a lot of heat build up, those high speed corners, high energy corners. You get the internal heat build up and the pressure builds, so they want to try and keep it cool as much as they can.
Fernando Alonso is the third driver out of the garage. Let's be the only driver who had to bail out fast lap when the red flag came out. Sargent's assuming he'll be up the tyres that he was on at that time, and that might put him at a little disadvantage for the first flying run of this Q3 session. There's still time for 2 flying runs to go.
Yep, and we've seen 9 cars out on track, obviously, so we're going to have plenty of space. Hopefully there should be no traffic issues. Standard winds his way up. This is a big session for his fans. Max on the previous 2 occasions probably only took pole by 21 thousandths in 2021, 38 thousandths last year, so it's not been comfortable. This is one of the things you look at the stats. Yeah, 2 poles, 2 wins. It's not been as comfortable or dominant as that suggests.
Last time out, Spa, his pole was a margin of 8 tenths of a second. I dare say he wants to be 8 tenths of a second here today if he does make it. Carlos Sainz the first to go for a flying lap, 25.9 for the first sector. This will show you just how this track has dried out. Alex Albon's gone even quicker through the first sector. This is not brilliant for Sainz to back down.
Yeah, he's a walking lap there. I think he pushed onto the first sector and then has backed out and maybe feels the front tyres aren't quite ready yet. George Russell now fastest of anyone as Alex Albon carries on his lap. Sainz gets out of the way.
And George Russell 25.2 for the first sector, 25.1 for Charles Leclerc, 25.0 for Lando Norris. It's not bone dry everywhere, but it is much, much drier, and these times are going to be significantly faster as a result. Through the middle part of the lap, not for long. George Russell then goes 4 tenths faster than Alonso on his lap. Alex Albon will be crossing the line. No, he won't. He's going to go into the pits. As good as that lap might have looked, Williams knew that actually it wasn't going to be fast enough for better to get him in another set of tyres to prepare for the final flying lap. He's had a bit of a sighter as Alonso 4 fastest. Russell goes quickest over 1:12.5, and that's quietly improved by over 3 seconds. As Charlotte from Alex Albon, Charles Leclerc goes second fastest. Lando Norris goes quickest now by half a second. How long's that going to last at the top? His teammate Oscar Piastri 2 tenths down as McLaren 1 and 2.
It's Piastri's first proper lap in dry conditions since yesterday, the first part of
in the morning, because he crashed in the afternoon after 10 minutes. Verstappen third fastest, nearly 3.5 tenths behind Lando Norris.
20 cents yesterday by Damon Hill and Lando will get all ahead of Verstappen. I've got my 20 cents point ready.
Archie looking comfortable, but all is not lost for the rest. 24.8 the first sector for Fernando Alonso. Charles Leclerc has stopped by the side of the track. Fernando Alonso's efforts are going to have to slow down because Charles Leclerc's out of qualifying. And what has happened here? Down out of turn 9. Charles Leclerc's qualifying is over. And we've got another red flag. Wow, what a qualifying session this is now turning into. Max Verstappen had just gone quickest through the first sector. Another lap that he had to bail out of as well. Charles Leclerc's gone into the barriers, as you can see on the left-hand side. He's made enough of a dent, excuse me, to disturb the advertising warnings. Looks away. I'm glad to see
very hard to say you're going to warm up and then push out at the end because they might be in a bit of trouble. So I think you just be trying to get as quickly on the board as you can and then work from there.
We'll see once more what happened to Charles Leclerc. As I said, it's tight. Just knew he wasn't going to make it. Tried to then run out wide, but there was no run-up area for him. 2 minutes to go until a resumption. Charles Leclerc out of qualifying. Currently sat P5 on the grid. On a drying track, that's not going to last for him. Lewis Hamilton out in the second part of qualifying. Again, a big shock name to depart there. Esteban Ocon out in the first part of the qualifying. Ocon 17th on the grid, Hamilton 13th on the grid. Where Charles Leclerc ends up, we'll find out in about 6 minutes' time. McLaren 1 and 2, Norris and Piastri. Max Verstappen about 3, nearly 4 tenths off Lando Norris. Now, was that just Max Verstappen getting a bit of a sighter in, trying to find some grip, not pushing completely, or have McLaren got a significant pace advantage in qualifying over the Red Bull?
Well, I'll tell you when the session starts, Crofty, in about 6 minutes' time.
After your predictions.
I'm still going to stick with it. I still think Lando's going to get pole. I'm going to stick with it. He's driven superbly this weekend. He's just looked on it from the first run of the weekend. He's looked comfortable around this track. This is a difficult track with all the elevation changes, the camber changes, the bumps. You have to get comfortable, as Liam Lawson was saying there. You have to get comfortable with the car moving around on a narrow track, which is unforgiving. And Lando has looked comfortable there.
In the back of my mind, we saw before the upgrades that came in Austria, the McLaren was a car that fired up its tyres, got heat into the tyres quicker than a lot of others. Now that was hampering them in the race. They're a bit like the Haas, they were overworking those tyres and they were dropping off a little bit. The upgrades have come, the points have come with it, but it's still a car that we've seen in qualifying fire up its tyres. We saw in the second practice session on the race run, the Red Bull, a bit kinder on his tyres, Max Verstappen having a pace advantage, George Russell having a pace advantage as well in the Mercedes over the two McLarens. But when it comes down to this point, maybe the McLaren's the car that we want to be in for a qualifying performance.
Yeah, and you know what, this is a tough track to overtake on. And, you know, I think qualifying and track position, grid position, is hugely important. So if you can qualify up ahead of your rivals, and listen, they're realistic, right? They're pretty sure Max will breeze past him in the race in terms of pure pace, maybe Checo as well. But really, their fight is with Mercedes and Ferrari and Aston Martin.
No queue at the end of the pit lane this time around. So forget your push, cool push. It's going to be come out, do a flying lap, and then hope that that's the one to get you a pole position. Perez first out of the garage. Alex Albon out just behind him. Fernando Alonso will be the third driver to come out onto the track.
So these guys clearly don't want to take the risk of a red flag. They're going out there early. The track is going to get faster and drier as the next 3 minutes unfolds, and it doesn't sound like much, but believe me, in 3 minutes time, when you have 10 big F1 cars or 9 big F1 cars running around, you will drive pretty quickly.
It sounds obvious, but it's an excellent point you make, isn't it? Perez 6th, Albon 7th, Alonso 9th. They can't risk double wave yellows, yellow flags, red flags. They've got to get out there before the rest and set a time, which might not be at the right time to try and get pole, but it's the right time to avoid any mishaps from others affecting your particular performance.
So what they have done by running out of sync is they potentially put themselves at risk of catching these drivers who are heading out of the pits now. There's Max with Piastri behind him. They're going to be on their outlaps. So the engineers and the people in the pit board are going to have to be careful to tell all of these drivers coming out of the pits not to impede Perez, Albon and Alonso, who are on a driver tracker coming around the final couple of corners.
We've already got the stewards after the qualifying session investigating 3 potential impeding moments. Especially around turn 3, it's quite a narrow track, it has to be said. Everyone's out on the track bar George Russell. everyone that can come on the track. Charles Leclerc has found the deck chair and he's going to watch the session by the side of the track. Logan Sargent has made his way back into the paddock again. He was the first one to bring out the red flag in this final part of qualifying. Leclerc was the second one to bring out the red flag, and we're going to get down to one final flying lap to decide pole for the Dutch Grand Prix, which is currently held by Lando Norris. It's an all McLaren front row. All McLaren front row. Haven't said that for many, many years, have we? Track course that told you 12 Brazil off the top of my head. And on that one, either way, the team celebrating 60 years in Formula 1. What an amazing achievement that would be, as Verstappen starts his final flying lap then. Ahead of him we see Alex Albon 25-1 for the first sector on his lap. We'll keep an eye on that. The timings as we keep an eye on Verstappen too. Round the banking, look really smooth coming out of there. This is the lap that his fans have come to see. A potential lap for Max Verstappen to get pole position. A 24-3 for the first sector.
And Perez, Albon and Alonso had backed off. They went for a build lap, so they are now all in sync for this final run. Norris quicker than Verstappen in the first sector, Crofty.
By about a tenth of a second. Oscar Piastri 4 tenths down through that first sector. Perez another couple of tenths further back. 24-2 from Lando Norris is the fastest first sector. 24-5 from Max Verstappen, the fastest middle sector. And half a second quicker than Oscar Piastri has managed in that middle sector. Verstappen now foot flat to the floor as he makes his way round the banking. Pole here in the last 2 years. Verstappen crosses the line. That is the time they all need to aim at. A 1:10.5. Verstappen on provisional pole. Lando Norris dropped about 0.2 of a second to him in the middle part of the lap. Piastri can't get past Max Verstappen. Neither can Lando Norris. There's half a second between Verstappen and Norris, who will be sharing the front row for the Dutch Grand Prix. Perez goes third fastest. He can't get ahead of his teammate or Norris. What about Alex Albon, who will be next to cross the line? Alonso goes third fastest. We didn't see him on his lap. That's a much better effort from him as Alex Albon crosses the line and goes third fastest for Williams.
What the fuck?
An incredible effort from Alex Albon and the Williams team. Carlos Sainz goes fifth fastest. His teammate Charles Leclerc will be starting ninth. George Russell next to cross the line and he goes third fastest, which pushes Alex Albon and Fernando Alonso down a place. And what a performance from Max Verstappen, from Lando Norris, from George Russell and Alex Albon. Super laps at the end there. It's Verstappen who takes pole for a third consecutive year.
He's delivered, isn't he, for that sea of orange out there. Coffee, 6 different cars in the top 6. That is an amazing grid.
That is pole position. Wow, 6 tenths.
What a lap. Wake up, guys. Let's get the chance of the holidays.
Well, Max, that was a mighty lap. Mighty lap in those conditions. Well done, mate. Well done, mate.
He's in the serious sport at the moment, isn't he? But look at the gap with Perez, Coffee, 1.3 seconds. But this is the point, yes, Red Bull have built a dominant car, but this guy is in a dominant season. He is in the dominant season of his life.
He returns from a racetrack, he gets straight back onto the sim and thinks about the next week, and he spends pretty much every day going on the sim back at home or in the Red Bull factory, and it is paying handsomely. Verstappen, who wants to make it 9 consecutive wins in tomorrow's Dutch Grand Prix, will start from pole position for the 3rd year in a row here. He takes the acclaim of the crowd. Behind him, though, terrific effort. Norris lines up second on the grid. Norris, of course, who was second at Silverstone alongside Max Verstappen on the grid. George Russell will start 3rd on the grid. That is George Russell's best qualifying performance since Australia. 4th on the grid, Alex Albon, matching his best qualifying performance in Formula 1. 5th on the grid, Fernando Alonso with Aston Martin a little bit further up there with their upgrades this weekend. Carlos Sainz only 6th on the grid for Ferrari. His teammate Charles Leclerc starts 9th because he crashed out. Sergio Perez, we mentioned. Oscar Piastri, maybe a little bit too early on his lap time, didn't get that last lap, that last run to his liking. And Logan Sargent, his first ever Q3, but crashing out and not able to go any higher than 10th. As you say, 6 different cars in the top 6 on the grid. I think we've got a pretty decent race on tomorrow, but you would expect for much of the race, the action will take place behind Max Verstappen.
Alex Albon's got to be the star, the sort of feel-good story of that session, isn't it? 4th place for Williams at a high downforce track. We're used to seeing them competitive on these low-drag, long straights sort of circuits at Spa and Silverstone and Monza. But this is an amazing result, and hats off to the design team and the aero team back at Grove. They have delivered.
David Coulthard is waiting to talk to the drivers. Max Verstappen with an 8th pole of the season. He's beaten this 2022 total. He's in the top 3 to talk to DC now.
Verstappen, pole position. There was a little bit of everything in that qualifying session, but in the end, a very impressive full half a second quicker than the second man.
Yeah, it was very tricky qualifying, starting of course with the intermediates, but also the track surface is quite slippery, the new tarmac. So yeah, it was all about putting your laps in, but also staying out of trouble. I think we managed that quite well, but then also at the end when we could go on to the slick tires again, it was like one dry line in some places, and yeah, we had to risk it a bit, but that last lap was very enjoyable.
Yeah, the management, yourself and the race team there getting you out on track. The only time it looked like a questionable decision was you went out on the intermediate when the track was just starting to dry and others had gone out in slicks. We heard you on team radio questioning.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've been to some other places already where we've had wet races and stuff, and I think this was the first time we came here with, you know, this kind of conditions. So I think we underestimated maybe a little bit with the wind as well, and then the sun coming out, how quickly it dried. So it's again all about experience and laps as you take forward, but at the end of the day it didn't matter. We still did the right thing.
We're obviously in your home country, a lot of support here. You've delivered stage 1, which is the pole position. It's been another fantastic crowd.
Yeah, I mean the pressure is always there to perform, but when you can pull it off is incredible.
Max, congratulations on pole position.
Thank you.
And the man that's been pushing Max all weekend, it really did look like you had a chance in these changeable conditions. Second is still a great result for you.
Yeah, thank you. Good. Yeah, no, I'm happy still. P2 was a good result. I guess in these kind of conditions, every now and then you hope Max makes a mistake and he doesn't. So frustrating in a little way, but I'm very happy. The team's done a good job. Was chaotic qualifying, but another P2, so good.
Yeah, you mentioned the conditions. It's really challenging when you know as the clock ticks down, you want to be one of the last across the line.
Yeah.
But how stressful is it changing weather condition qualifying like that?
Qualifying is always stressful, no matter what the conditions, but definitely now it's definitely trickier. Like the first half of the lap was mega. The second half of the lap was probably one of the worst second halves that I've done. So it peaked very early on, but it's tough, but I really enjoy these conditions. I've always enjoyed the conditions. It's when we do well, so I'm taking a P2 still.
When you say peaked very early in your lap, was that the tyre peaked or the driver peaked?
The driver. Tyres are good to the end. The driver peaked very early, so I got a bit of work to do. Just not the most comfortable, but good enough, so I'll take it.
Yeah, great P2. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And finally, our third place man, you kept us waiting right until the very end to pull that third place in. That was a tricky session, but you must be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Really great session. Happy to be here in P3. Quali was one of my strengths at the start of the year, and it's just been going a little bit wrong recently, so it was good to have that break. Came in with a fresh set of ideas, good reset, and we're in a great place tomorrow to fight for a podium.
We heard Lando say there that he's owning the fact that he peaked too early in the lap. How was your lap overall?
Yeah, but that was okay, to be honest. It was, we know we always struggle when it's either very wet or it's the crossover onto the slicks when we've got to get that temperature into the tyres. But we know the Saturday weakness is the strength on Sunday. So it's going to be an exciting race. I'm sure Max will be having his Sunday drive and waving to the crowd on his way tomorrow, but hopefully we can have a good fight with Alex, Lando, and the rest of the guys.
You mentioned Alex there. The Williams has been incredibly strong, but are you really looking one place back rather than one place forward?
Yeah, I'm really happy for Williams and Alex. I said before the session, I saw the guys on the pit wall looking pretty happy with their performance. And I flew over here with Alex, and I said, what are your expectations for the weekend? He says, I think we're going to be rubbish. So he got that one slightly wrong. But as I said, really well done to Max, but also to Alex and Williams.
Yeah, well, congratulations on your third place. We'll see how the race goes tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Congratulations then to Max Verstappen, his 28th career pole. And just a really compelling qualifying session, wasn't it? The track drying rapidly, they strapped on the slicks. Times started tumbling. A flurry of fantastic laps then at the end, but only after 2 red flags. So plenty for them to navigate as they put in those final push laps in the final part of qualifying. But it was Max Verstappen who emerged at the front once again, to the delight of the home fans. And this is, of course, his 3rd consecutive year on pole here at Zandvoort. And the pole position award has been given out now by Marta Garcia. She is, of course, leading the F1 Academy Championship and his favourite to lift the inaugural title final round in Austin, when, of course, Formula One is joined by the F1 Academy for the first time. So we'll start with some great things to come. And yeah, congratulations to Marta for her great progress in the F1 Academy. Okay, loads of sport to enjoy across Sky Sports throughout this weekend and next. It's Eliminators Day in the 100 today. The women are playing now, followed by the men at 5:30, with the winners playing in the finals tomorrow. The women at 1:45 and the men at 5:30. Boxing next Saturday. Well, it's a massive grudge rematch between Liam Smith and Chris Eubank Jr. That's from 6 o'clock on Sky Sports Box Office. Tennis. And the US Open starts on Monday at 3 o'clock from Flushing Meadows as Carlos Alcaraz looks to defend his crown. And it's a big weekend of Premier League action. Saturday night at the Amex Stadium, it's Brighton hosting West Ham. And then Super Sunday champions and Liverpool at 4 o'clock at St James's Park. Okay, this is what we've got in store for you tomorrow, though, here in Holland for Formula One.
Do you know what was happening there? This is Spa.
We got a puncture, right?
For some reason, I ended up in your car and you were driving maybe too quick. Yeah.
I was driving too quick.
Mistake. You put this on to protect the actual visor, and then you have, I have like, I think I have like 5 or 6. You can have as many as you want, but eventually your vision will be blurred because it's so thick. So, and you just try and pull them off when you can. And even though it's littering, you don't feel bad because they can clean it up at the end of the day.
After a 36-year hiatus, the Dutch Grand Prix returned to the Formula One calendar 2 years ago, mainly because of one man, Max Verstappen. As he hunts for his 3rd home victory in a row, I've come to find out just what his success means to sport in the Netherlands.
So these are the times for tomorrow. The race will start at 2 o'clock, and all our build up to the Dutch Grand Prix from 12:30 here live on Sky Sports F1. So congratulations to Max. Orange Army will be absolutely delighted with that performance. He's put it on pole by over half a second. He'll share the front row with Lando Norris. George Russell also put in a great performance to secure 3rd, and Alex Albon in 4th. All the reaction to that on the way next.
From F1 to Q1, the right technology drives you forward. Formula One on Sky Sports, sponsored by Workday, a finance and HR system.
Gillette Labs. New Neon Night Edition. A razor unlike any other. With a unique exfoliating bar that clears the skin before the blades. For an efficient cutting action and exceptional comfort. Enjoy effortless shaving and exfoliation in one stroke. Put your best face forward. with new Gillette Labs Neon Night Edition. The ultimate shave or your money back.
Welcome on stage, the Little Lambs.
With more choice than any other supermarket, there's an Ocado just for you.
So home hero Max Verstappen is on pole once again. Here's how he did it.
That is pole position. Wow, 6th.
On the lap. Great job, guys. That was a good return from the holidays.
Well done, Max. That was a mighty lap. It was a mighty lap in those conditions. Well done, mate. Well done, mate.
Norris second, Russell third.
Well, Damon and Bernie, when you see those blue skies, it's hard to believe it's the same day. I mean, the change has been phenomenal and so much for them to contend with. I mean, anyone tuning in now will say, well, of course, Max Verstappen's on pole, but he didn't have it all his own way. He had to fight hard for it.
There were so many trapdoors in those sessions. Any of those moments he could have slipped up and not, you know, you only need to lack concentration for a fraction of that. We saw the guys who went off. You know, it's so easy to go overcook it, and it takes an awful lot of concentration and experience and determination to hold it all together and then deliver, not just by a small margin, but half a second is healthy.
Seriously impressive, and you know, much to the delight of all of his home fans. His 8th pole of the season, that surpasses his total from last year. He just goes from strength to strength.
Yeah, there just appears to be no stopping it at the minute, really, and it was a very tricky session, like Damon said. A lot of changing conditions. There's no run-up to that final lap in Q3, really. It's a very different track condition to every other lap they've done so far, seen by the lap time. So that is just the confidence in the car, isn't it? To be fit to put it exactly where you want to do and to blow away the competition by that margin is really incredible.
And the margin to his teammate, quite astonishing, 1.3 seconds. So it certainly isn't all about the car.
It definitely is, and then, you know, often in those sessions we can see that sort of delta if the lap time's set at a very different time, but across Max and Checo it wasn't. It was set at a very similar time. They were very close together on track.
How difficult is it as a driver to contend with those changeable conditions and those red flags? And you're seeing very experienced colleagues on the grid coming a cropper.
I think you enter at least I can speak for myself. I think you enter into the state of mind when you go into competition where you accept anything that happens, and you go, okay, that has happened. Now, what is my best strategy? What is the next thing I have to be thinking about? So you don't think, oh, tell me about you know, why Logan Sargent went off. You know, okay, if it's not relevant, I don't want to know. You know, but clearly there's information that's coming to you, and it takes a lot of patience to be able to just keep it all together and keep in the frame.
Yeah, patience and strong nerves. How were they for you throughout that session?
Well, it's a moving target continually with the weather and the conditions, and it's obviously very tricky for the drivers as well. So yeah, you're just trying to follow the track, and there were moments there you think, you know, this could get away from us, but that last lap of Max and the out lap, the prep that he had, and then to deliver the lap that he did was phenomenal.
Christian, you have to say, you know, he's worth every penny, isn't he? Because that sort of session is the kind of session where any lesser person, any lesser driver, they've got the pressure on them, they've got the home crowd, they've got a slightly damp track, you know.
I mean,
just doesn't...
you don't get more pressure than that. I mean, yeah, I'm sure internally he must feel the pressure, the expectation of a crowd like this, the noise, the build-up, the hype. You know, the way he handles it is just truly remarkable. And I think to go out there and do what he did in very, very, you know, taxing conditions was a great lap.
Yeah, Christian, how nervous was the Q1 and Q2 sessions with only one set of intermediate, or very close to one set of intermediate for Max? Obviously, some came a cropper with that sort of strategy. So how nervous did you feel on the pit wall?
Well, the biggest wobble that we had throughout the whole qualifying was when he went straight on at turn 1 on his first lap in Q1, and then the next lap he got blocked, and we hadn't got a lap, and I'm looking at this great big black cloud coming, thinking, no, surely, no, we just need to get one lap on the board. And you know, thankfully, the next lap, you know, he did. You heard, it was the first time I heard him slightly unsettled when he's saying, I think something's wrong with the car, but it was just the temperature in the tyres, they just weren't there yet.
He was complaining vociferously, wasn't he? I mean, it was sounded a bit like kind of panic stations at one stage. I haven't got any grip at all, the tyres are car. Yeah.
And then he went fastest.
Yeah, I was going to say, keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it, though.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
The threat for pole was coming from various different departments, because you felt as if McLaren could get it.
Yeah.
Williams were looking really strong
absolutely.
at one point. George Russell putting in a strong lap at the end there. Who did you think maybe your main contenders for pole?
I thought in conditions like that, the McLaren seems to warm the tyres up pretty quickly, and I thought that McLaren were going to be a lot closer than they were there, because you know, in these conditions, a damp track, you need to generate the temperature. I thought that, you know, Lando, you know, or Oscar, they might have stolen it, but you know, then a whole bunch of others turned up as well, and it was you know, an interesting mix.
Temporarily, you had Checo up in the top 3, but then quite a few people have jumped in the gap. But it was quite a big gap between him and Matt. How do you account for that? I mean, I'm sure Checo is, you know, right on the limit, surely.
I'm sure, of course, he is. You know, what can you say in conditions like that? It's the same for everybody. You just got to go out there and feel the grip and put a lap in. And you know, for whatever reason, he hasn't quite had the confidence that, you know, certainly Max. I don't think anybody has had the confidence that Max has. So, you know, a harder session for him. But then, you know, there's others around him that have struggled. I didn't expect Oscar, for example, to be behind him. But, you know, a little bit of a mixture behind us.
We talk a lot about the pressure on the drivers. What about you? How did it feel for you throughout that session?
Well, you're just trying to keep, you know, balance in thinking and ensure that the pit wall's focused on the right things. And I think everybody was doing their job today. Nobody was getting excited. Despite the noise on the pit wall with that music blaring, it's hard to hear yourself think at time over the techno music that they're playing, or whatever it is. So
it's like a Saturday night at the Horners, isn't it?
Well, maybe a Damon's, but not yeah, not my kind of music. But you know, it's tough. But you know, everybody did their job, and that's been testimony to the team getting it together again.
Great stuff. Well, you should be very proud. Well done.
Thank you very much.
And all the best for tomorrow. Thank you for your time, Christian Horner. Okay, let's head over to the Skypad with Ant.
Yeah, as Christian Horner was just saying, Natalie, such tough conditions for all of the drivers out there. I mean, hats off to all of them. That was incredibly difficult to survive all those changeable conditions, but it boiled down to these two here. I was expecting it as well, Max Verstappen versus Lando Norris for pole position here today. We got them lined up side by side, so let's crack on and have a look at this as they head down towards turn 1. Both drivers reaching the apex nicely, getting on power at the same time, and pretty much neck and neck through this part of the track. Now this is interesting as they go in towards turn 3. Look at this little bit of damp patch, I think it is Stewart's on their left-hand side there. Both of them are on an identical line on the track. It's only when they get later on in the corner that Max dips a wheel over the white line, more so than Lando. And I think in that moment, just there, Max gets a snap and Lando gets a slightly cleaner exit. I mean, we're talking millimeters here, but Lando just getting to that orange and white curve ever so slightly ahead. I'm going to stop it once again at the top of the hill here at turn 6. We'll just roll it back slightly. I've overshot there, and you can see, yeah, this curve on the left-hand side. Lando gets there slightly ahead. He was faster in Sector 1. So up to this point in the lap, Lando, I believe, has absolutely nailed it. Where it goes slightly wrong for him is in towards Skyflock. Watch Verstappen. He gets the car in towards the apex earlier right next to that white line, and Lando starts to drift out mid-corner. See where Max has got his car near the curb on the right? And I think that gives him a little bit extra speed and arrives at this corner, this curb here, ever so slightly ahead. So he's regained, and more so on just that one corner from what he lost in turn 3. Now in towards turn 9. Both drivers get a bit of a snap of oversteer mid-corner, maybe more for Lando on the exit, but this is where Max is supreme, I think. As we approach this part here, watch his hands on the wheel. He just catches an ever so slight amount of snap of oversteer, but then resets the car with understeer mid-corner. It's very windy as well. We didn't mention that yet today. Lando getting a snap on the exit, and that kills his momentum as he heads down the straight now towards turn 11. He's losing time here, thick and fast, as they get to the apex of 11 itself. You can see that Max is getting there ahead of him. So the damage has been done. Lando himself admitted, yeah, you know, it wasn't my best qualifying ever. It was in the first sector, but just 2 moments, I believe, got away from him where he lost that bit of time. And maybe answers the question that Christian Horner had. Look, I was expecting McLaren to be a bit more of a threat today in the dry conditions. I think they would have been. I mean, I feel bad being a bit picky there for Lando. It was still a brilliant lap. But I believe Max just got it a little bit sweeter than he did where it really mattered on the track. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Ant. OK, let's hear from Lando's team boss. Zach Brown is with Karun now.
Zach, P2 for Lando. Are you happy with that?
Oh, we are happy with that. You know, we've been strong all weekend, both Lando and Oscar. I think we probably had a little bit more time left in Lando's car, but not 6/10. So I think P2 was a great achievement. And then Oscar, you know, been mega fast all weekend. I think just missed a little bit there on that one lap shootout. But to have both cars comfortably inside the top 10, I think we got good race cars for tomorrow.
Yeah, what happened to Oscar? Because, as you said, he looked like he was almost tracking Lando within a 10th or 2, sometimes ahead on the earlier runs. But, you know, quite a big chunk behind in P8. Did he make a mistake, or was it just the whole lap didn't come together?